Hey, how's it going everyone? In this video, I will show you how you can set up Selenium Grid with Docker. So let's get started. So the very first thing that we will go over is our prerequisite. So you need to have some familiarity with Docker. You also need to have Docker installed in your machine, and then you need a Selenium script which you can execute your test on in Docker. So the test can be language agnostic, it can be in any language as well, it can be in any framework. The script itself doesn't really matter. What matters is how we can actually run that in Docker instead. So these prerequisites, I've already covered it in my previous videos, which was with Selenium with Docker and Selenium with Docker with VNC. If you haven't checked those ones out, make sure you do that, as that's where I actually explained how you can integrate your Selenium tests with Docker, as well as how you can see it in VNC Viewer as well. In this video, I'm going to assume that you have already checked out that video and you already have some basic familiarity with how to set up Selenium with Docker. So now let's move on to our next slide, which is why do you need Selenium Grid? If you notice over here, we have a client, and then we have a Selenium hub, and then we have our nodes. So essentially, the very first advantage we get is that we can run our test on multiple browsers. As you can see over here, multiple versions. We can even have different versions of our browser. So I can have Chrome, let's say version 91. I can have Chrome version 89, which is the older version, right? Similarly, with Firefox and Safari, I can do the same thing. Then I can have it on separate devices. Right now, over here, I haven't actually mentioned, but basically you can run it on, let's say, on your Windows, but you can also run it on, let's say, on your mobile devices. And then you can do the same thing with different operating system as well, like Apple, Windows, or Linux instead. The next advantage you have is, since you're running all of this test in parallel, we are reducing our overall test execution time. So if you would do it one by one, you would have to first run your test, let's say in Apple, you would run it in Chrome, and then you would execute your test again, and then you will run it on, let's say, Edge in Windows. So you're doing this one by one, and your test will take a lot more time. Instead, what we are doing is, with the help of Selenium Hub and setting up our nodes, we are doing this in parallel. So for example, I can have Chrome running in Apple as well as have Edge running in Windows, both at the same time. So this way, I don't have to wait for one to finish for the other one to start. I can spin up both the browser instances together, which will help me overall reduce my test execution time. And the last one is that it's easier to manage the infrastructure. Since we have set up a Selenium hub and we have connected it with various nodes, it's easier for me to manage this because I can go to my Selenium hub and take a look at all the different browsers and operating systems that are running inside this grid. So this is the advantage that you get with using Selenium Grid. You can run them on multiple browsers, you can reduce your overall test execution time, and in the end, it is easier to maintain this infrastructure as well with the help of Selenium Grid. So now let's talk about how can we actually set up Selenium Grid with Docker. The very first thing that we need to do is set up a grid network to communicate between these images. So this grid network is specific for Docker. So we need to set up a Docker network, and we will name this, let's say, called grid, and then that will help us communicate between the Docker images. If you're not familiar with that, don't worry, we will go over with that in just a few minutes, but I just want to explain what are some of the steps that we will be taking in, and then we will go ahead and actually do it in our terminal instead. All right, so the next thing you need is a Selenium Hub Docker image, and this is where our grid hub will get spin up. So this image, once we actually run that, it will spin up basically allow us to go to, let's say, localhost port 4444 or any port that you have set up, and that's where our Selenium Hub would reside, and that Selenium Hub is essentially the same thing which is over here. Once we have that, the next thing we need to do is set up our images for Chrome and Firefox or any browser that you actually want to run it in. So here I will set up my Chrome and Firefox images. I will connect that, and this is important. I'm going to have to connect that with the same network because I'm saying these are all running within the same network. These are not separate networks or separate test Firefox browser that are running separately totally. Instead, what we are focusing on that they are running under the same network. And then I'm also saying that they are sharing the Selenium Hub host. This last step is actually really important. I have to make sure that it is connecting with the grid. That means it's connected with this grid network. And then I also need to make sure that it's connected with the Selenium Hub host. So once we do that, we will have something like this, where we have a Selenium Hub grid, which is right over here. And then I have my browsers, let's say Chrome over here, as well as Firefox over here. Now, both of these browsers are connecting to the same grid network, as well as they are connecting to the Selenium Hub Docker image. All right, now let's take a look at how exactly we can do this in terminal. All right, so I'm here on Selenium Docker GitHub repository. I will add the link for that in the description below. So here you can notice this is how we can set up our Selenium Grid hub and nodes. The way we will be doing is using the Docker networking. So with this option, first we need to do is set up our grid as I mentioned in our slide. So we will do that this way by doing Docker network create grid. So actually, let's go ahead and do this one by one so that you know what exactly we are doing. So here I'm going to execute that. Just make sure I'm under the same directory where I have my test. So this is the directory where I have my test resided. Then I'm going to do Docker network create grid. Once I do that, we got this network ID. And if I do Docker network ls to print out my network, you can notice I have some default networks which are for my for our Docker containers, and then I have one for the grid which we just set up. And if you can notice, the hash ID is same 2493, and it's the same thing over here 2493. So we have set up our grid network. The next thing we're going to do is run our Selenium hub. So we can do it this way. It's pretty straightforward. I'm going to copy that. Then I will paste that here. Now, in my previous videos, I've explained how this command works, but I'll quickly give over another overview on how this works. So we are essentially running that Docker image, which is this particular Selenium Hub image here. I'm passing it port 4444, which is the port here for my local machine, and this port is for the Docker container. I'm running it in the detach mode. Then I'm saying that the network, really make sure this is same thing that you will actually put in here. If you have named this grid as your network name, you have to do the same thing over here. So you would do --net, and then you need to name the same thing which is named your grid. In our case, we named it grid, so we put that over here. And next, we need to give our name to our Selenium Hub image. So we are giving it over here by doing --name and passing Selenium Hub right here. Now, if I hit enter, so right now it's not able to find that image in my local machine. So it's going to pull that. And once it will pull it up, it will give me a Docker container ID. And then we should be able to go ahead and run our localhost 4444, where I should be able to see my Selenium Hub running. So this is completed now. So if I go to, let's say, localhost 4444, you can notice I have a Selenium Grid Hub running here. If I go to console, at this moment, I do not have any browser spinning up right here, right? So because at this point, we have our grid, but we do not have any browsers connected to it. So the next thing we need to do is connect our browser to our grid. So in this case, they are doing it for Chrome, they're doing it for Firefox, and then they're doing it for Opera. In my case, I will just do it for Chrome and Firefox, but let's start off with Chrome first. I will copy this, and then I will just paste it here. So to quickly go over, what we are doing is same thing, detach mode. We are right here, it's important, we are saying that the network is grid, that the same under the same network. And then another thing is I'm doing -e for the environment. I'm saying the hub host, which is the host for this particular Docker container, it should be the Selenium Hub. And that's the same name that we gave over here for our Docker image. So this is how we are linking all of this stuff together. So we are saying user network grid, and then the hub host, which is the environment variable, should be Selenium Hub. This way it knows that it is actually connected to this image right over here. And then I'm passing in the volume, doing dev shm. And this is important because it will allow us to share the host memory, which is, let's say, my own machine right now, Mac OS. And if we don't do that, then we might run into issues where Chrome would just crash inside the Docker container. So this is again important to put that right over here. And the next thing is obviously our image name, which is Selenium Node Chrome, which is good enough. I can run this. I will hit enter. Again, it's not able to find it locally. It's going to spin that up. So once this has happened, what will happen is in our grid console, if I hit enter after this is actually finished, which it is finished now, I'm going to hit enter. And you can notice we have our Chrome WebDriver spinning up right over here. So that's pretty amazing. So what I just did now is I set up my grid network, and then I went in and set up my grid image, which is spinning up under over here, which is Selenium Hub. And once that was done, I connected my Chrome browser to my grid, right? Originally, it was not there, but now I was able to connect that. Same thing I can do for another one as well, Firefox. Now, just keep in mind, this is optional. I can just keep one browser over here. I don't have to connect to another browser. But the whole point of using Grid is so that you can connect to multiple browsers and devices and so on. All right, so that is done. The next thing is run, let's say, our Firefox image. So I will copy that and paste that here. Everything remains the same. The only thing we have changed is the node. It's good enough. And it's going to try to pull that again, which is fine. I'll come over here, and once I will hit enter here, it will also show up right over here, Firefox image. So yep, this is done. I will hit enter, and there you go. We have Firefox here as well. Awesome. So we have successfully set up our grid. How can we make sure that this is actually working? Well, that's pretty easy, right? We will run our test and we will see if it will actually run in our Chrome and Firefox browser or not. Okay, so let's do that. So for that, I'm going to have to go to VS Code. So this is my VS Code script that I created in my previous videos, or basically I showed you in my previous videos on what this actually does. So I'll give a quick overview. We are doing a basic Google search. I have selected the browser Firefox. Now, originally we were passing in the server for, let's say for Firefox, I was spinning it up on a separate port. And for Chrome, I was spinning it up on a separate port, right? And that was another issue, right? Because I have to do it on different ports. I could not have it on the same port. And right now with our grid, we just have one port located for this. So that's another advantage we have with grid. And then I'm just doing Google search, trying to search for my name, and then basically printing some stuff related to browser name and browser version. Pretty straightforward. What I will do now is actually copy this because this one is only running individual browser. What I want it to run is run the test on multiple browser. So I will quickly copy this, paste it here, rename this to, let's say, test parallel, because I can actually run my test in parallel in different browsers. All right, now here I will make some changes to my script. First off, I don't need this anymore. I will get rid of this. And in my server, I'm running it on 4444. So I'm going to keep it there. And for the browser, I'm going to remove this. And then I will change this to, let's say, browser. And in my Google search, I'm just going to pass in browser. So whatever parameter I will pass in will get passed in over here. So if I do Chrome, it will show Chrome. If it's Firefox, and so on. Now, right now, this is an iffy function. What that means is if you're not familiar with JavaScript, essentially this function is getting executed automatically. So I will get rid of that. And then I don't want to keep it iffy. I want to manually execute this function. So this is fine. And now I will manually execute it by typing in Google search. And as you can notice, it's asking me for a browser. I will say, okay, my first browser is Chrome, which is good. I will copy the whole thing and then say, okay, my next browser is Firefox, right? Because we need to run it on Chrome and Firefox. Cool, so this is done. Our script is ready. I'm going to clear this. And now we will go ahead and execute the script. So I will do node test dash parallel, and then I'm going to hit enter. And just notice once I hit enter, I'm going to head over to Chrome and hit enter here. And take a look at this. Right now, originally it was not grayed out or slightly grayed out. Right now it's saying there's a session that's been executing for Firefox. Similarly, if I hover over here, it should tell me the same thing. There you go. There's a session executed for Chrome as well. What that means is that there are tests that are running in both Chrome as well as in Firefox because we just spin up the test in our terminal. But if I go over to my terminal now, you can notice here the Chrome test finished. We got Chrome, we got the result of that actual search, and I got the Chrome version, which is great, and it matches the exact same version which is over here. Then the same thing for Firefox 89.0, which also matches to over here as well. So that's pretty awesome. As you can notice, this is still grayed out. The reason being is we have to just simply reload this. If I just reload, there you go, it's idle again. So essentially what's happening is that this node, when we are running a test, the node gets busy, right? Because there's a test running on that. So if I'm trying to, let's say, run multiple tests, the node will have to become idle first before it can run the next test. So to give you an example, let's take a look at over here. Let's copy this and then try to paste it right over here again. Now what I'm doing is I'm spinning up 2 tests of Chrome and 2 tests of Firefox, right? In this case, what will happen is the moment I spin this up and head over here, we just have 1 Chrome and 1 Firefox. As you notice, this is the key thing. It's saying that there are 2 requests that are waiting for the slot to be free. Because we are saying, okay, once this is finished, we want you to run 2 more tests. Now those 2 tests, are one of them going to run in Chrome, another one is going to run on Firefox. So we are just waiting for those to be finished. So once the test executes over there, and I'm going to head over here. As you can notice, at this point, it already 4 of them finished. But basically, if I hit enter, there you go. Those 2 requests got removed from here. The Chrome test finished, the Firefox test finished, and all 4 of them are completed here. So I can see Chrome, that completed, then the Firefox got completed, then another Chrome got completed, and then another Firefox got completed. So that's it, guys. This is how you can go ahead and actually set up Selenium Grid with Docker. You can actually update your script similarly where it's pointing into one particular port, which is in our case, that's where our Selenium Hub is being pointed to, port 4444. And then we have our Chrome and Firefox running as well. Now, this time when we were running multiple tests, let's say we were running 2 Chrome and 2 Firefox, we had to wait for this particular Chrome node to be actually free. But let's say if we don't want to wait and we have enough infrastructure support where we can actually spin up multiple browsers at the same time. Now, maybe I want to have 2 Chrome browsers here, 2 Firefox browser, maybe 3 Chrome, 3 Firefox, and so on. So how can we actually do that? If I head over here, and if let's see if they will actually show us how that is possible. I'm actually too not sure. Let's take a look at that. So I'm going to scroll down. So I actually know what I'm searching for here. So I will do a quick search for, I will search here node max instances. Oh, there you go. It's actually telling me right here. So if I need to increase the number of browser instances or slot, in our case, when we notice it says 2 slots are currently waiting, we can do that by passing it node max instances. I will say, let's say node max instances equal 5, and then I can do the same thing. But another thing they tell us that don't forget to combine the environment variable node max session along with the node max instances. So instances are your browsers and the sessions are the number of sessions that are being run. So we need to do that together. So I will copy this and then I'm going to paste this here. So I'm going to have to kind of stop the existing image. So I will do docker ps. So this is the image that are being run for Firefox and Chrome. I'm going to stop that, docker stop, and stop this image. That's wrong, docker stop this image. There you go, that's stopped. And I can actually do the same thing for the other one as well for Firefox, which is this port right here. Okay, both of them have been stopped now. If I go to grid, I should not see anything over here once it finished reloading. So I've stopped Chrome as well as I've stopped Firefox. I will clear that. I will do docker ps. The only thing we have running is Selenium Hub. It's taking time for this to load here, which is okay. But now what I will do is spin up the grid again, or not the grid, I will spin up the Chrome and Firefox session again. So here is my Firefox. Now what I will do is add in this node max instances. So I'm going to copy this. I'm going to come over here and then I can paste this right after the environment right here. I'm going to paste that there. And it says 5 instances. I will change that to, let's say, 3. And same thing here, 3. I'm going to hit enter. Okay, so this is done. If I go over here and if I just reload, okay, there you go. We are seeing 3 Firefox. And the reason we are seeing this one is sometimes you will see this because that's not the idle one. So grid will often show you that we have another one there. But that is okay. That will get removed once we spin up the Chrome one. So let's see if I do the same thing for Chrome. Let's see, Chrome here. And then I'm going to do it right here. Paste this. And then let's say for Chrome, I just want to keep it 2. All right, so the moment I would reload, let's just wait for a little bit. There you go. I can see 2 Chrome and 3 Firefox right over here. So that's pretty cool. Now what we just did is we added extra browser instances and then extra sessions as well because that's required for each instances as well. And I did 3 for Firefox and 2 for Chrome. Now if I run my test, if I head over here, do node test-parallel right here. If I hit enter, and if I hit enter here, you're going to notice we are not seeing that 2 requests are waiting because those 2 requests are being executing right over here for Chrome, for Firefox over there, and for Chrome right over here, right? And you can also notice that one of the node right here is actually free because we are only running 2 tests in Firefox and 2 tests in Chrome. So the third one is actually free right here. And if I enter over here again, you can notice everything basically went, it's back to idle, and that means my test is finished. Oops. That means my test is finished, and I can see 2 Chrome right here and 2 Firefox right here. So this is how, if you need to increase your max instances and max sessions, you can do that as well using Selenium Grid, and basically setting that environment variable in your Docker container when you're spinning up your container. And that way you can actually run multiple tests together. Now, if you're not too sure why you would need to do this, essentially it will help you run your test in multiple browsers. That means it's going to reduce the overall test execution time. So for example, if I have 10 tests and if I'm spinning that up in 5 different browsers together, it's going to be completed faster compared to if I'm running those 10 tests and only running it in 2 different browsers. Now, there are some nuances to that, but I will not get into too much detail over there right now. But basically, the reason we would do this is so that if you have enough infrastructure where you can support multiple browsers, you can actually do that with the help of Selenium Grid and setting up multiple sessions and instances. So that's pretty much it, guys. To quickly review, we set up a grid network that helped us to communicate between our images. Then we set up Selenium Hub, which allowed us to create our grid hub. And then we created or ran our Chrome and Firefox images, but we made sure that we connect that with the grid network, as well as we made sure that it is connecting with the Selenium Hub host. Once we did that, we also saw, instead of just running it on one Chrome and one Firefox instances, how we can do that in multiple Firefox and Chrome instances as well by passing in that environment variable, which was node max instance and node max session, which allowed us to run it in multiple sessions of Chrome and multiple instances of Firefox. So that's it for this video, guys. If you enjoyed this video, there are a few ways you can support me. The easiest is by liking this video and subscribing to my channel. And if you have the means, you can support me by buying me a cup of coffee or joining my monthly membership on buymeacoffee.com. The links for that will be in the description below. Also, one last thing, if you subscribe to my mailing list, you will get access to all my latest posts as well as videos, as well as access to a private Facebook community where we can talk with each other and discuss all things related to testing and automation. So that's all for now, guys. I will see you all in the next one.